Welcome, everybody. How are you? Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Boundaries to Bliss Lounge live show. This is where we have our laid back, relaxed chats to help you on your journey to empowered living. Don't forget to like and subscribe, share, and don't forget every Monday a new episode of the podcast comes out. My podcast, as you know, if you're part of the family, is The Secret Formula to Femininity. And we are on what episode? We're season 2. We're already on episode 38. So if you have been part of the journey all this time, thank you, thank you, thank you for the support. If you're just joining, make sure you go watch the whole podcast playlist. So many gems, so many lessons, great guests, great motivation and inspiration, and things that you can walk away with to help you on your feminine energy journey. So, what's up, everybody? I'm sorry I was running a little bit late. You know, we're in Ramadan, so I was with my family. We were breaking the fast, but I was like, you know what? This is where I am every Thursday night. I'm chatting with you guys. We are chilling. We are relaxing. I'm answering your questions. So I had to make sure that I got here to do the live tonight. So I love tonight's topic. You know, it's free flowing, but I love to kind of have a theme that we talk about. And today is dispelling myths, 3 myths about feminine energy. So, you know, everybody's talking about it now, right? Like people want to talk about soft life, how to lean into your femininity, how to enhance your feminine energy. And despite that, there is still a lot of pushback. And I believe that pushback, like that's usually other women who were rejecting it or saying, you know, I don't need to talk about feminine energy. I'm tired of hearing about this. A lot of that pushback comes from people buying into certain myths about feminine energy. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to dispel those myths. But first, let's do a little uh, icebreaker, right? So tell me in the chat, let me know, what have you done this week that was fun, joyful, frivolous, right? If you heard me talk about femininity, it's like part of it is leaning into that part of you that is not so serious. So many of us as women, especially women of color, we get into this like ultra serious, and especially if you're a high achiever, it's like everything is about, you know, reaching a goal, being about business, like overly practical, overly serious. So I want to know, what is something that you did that wasn't serious this week? Something that where you leaned into the fun side, the exciting side, the frivolous, playful side, right? If you talk to my kids and other people in my family, they will tell you I am such a goofball. I am always doing something funny, crazy, dancing, trying to make them laugh, being into my sarcastic, jokes and things like that. And that's no matter what, right? That is no matter what. I believe that that's part of what keeps me in a good mood. It's part of what keeps me youthful. And it is certainly part of what keeps me feminine. So tell me something that you did that was really, really fun this week. I will tell you something that I did. It's kind of funny. And you'll see it if you go to my Instagram and the stories. I am a social media shopper. Like I'll be scrolling and I've gotten so many good things. I got these sneakers off of Facebook. I'm that person that will just I try stuff, right? It won't be like really, really expensive, but I'll try different things. I bought a jacket off of an ad that I saw. Like I just do stuff like that. So I saw, and I'm big into health and wellness and my diet. And I'm really a fan of eating a lot of protein, especially with all my meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever. So I saw an ad for chicken skin chips, right? That sounds crazy. It's like a bag of chips, but it's fried or air fried chicken skins. And it has 13 grams of fat. I mean, not fat, excuse me, 13 grams of protein. So it's like a rich, nutrient rich snack. It has fat too. But one thing I learned is like, don't be afraid of fat, natural fats in foods. Anyway, we had such a ball. I was such a goofball when the package came. It's a box and you have like a package of like eight bags and they're little, so it really is one of those snacks where you're getting just enough. You can't overindulge because the bag is like really small, and my kids were like, man, what? It's like really not a lot in there, but it's you don't need a lot. But when that box came, I was like, oh my god, my chicken skins came, and I was dancing. I had the box all on my head, and they were just cracking up at me. They were like, "Mom, you are so silly. You are super, super silly." Um, but we all got it to taste them. On a serious note, I do recommend them. They are really good. And they're just enough to where like foods that aren't nutrient rich, you can that's why you just keep eating them. Like a bag of chips is just basically potatoes and oil and a bunch of chemicals. And it's not really filling. So you'll just be eating all of them and you just keep eating because you're not really getting full. Protein is what fills you up, also fiber. So anyway, with these chicken skins, it's a small bag, so you when you finish, you've had enough. Now, if you want to be greedy and eat, all the bags, that's on you. But if you eat one bag, it'll be just enough. Okay. So we had a lot of super fun with that. The weather is getting nice. So I've just been doing a lot of walking, and I'm doing this alternating where I'm doing like kind of interval walking, kind of like intensity interval training, but just with walking. So I'll like walk slowly and then quickly. And so when I was doing my quick, I was like not running, but I was like skipping like this. Somebody was looking at me like when I was on the track, they were cracking up. Okay. So tell me something that you did that was fun, super, super fun, funny, lighthearted, and playful. That is the key to life, I'm telling you. Because when we look back on stuff, it's like a lot of the stuff it's not that deep. It is not that deep. All of this anger, resentment. Yes, there are issues that are deep, but like a lot of this stuff that we get up in a tizzy, a lot of the times we are upset, not even about the big world issues. It's these little resentments and like little interpersonal issues and problems that we're having. And then we're like holding on to grudges and, not talking to people, but not telling them why. It's just like, that is so draining, ladies. Okay. So let's talk about these three myths about feminine energy that still persist that I think is the cause of a lot of black backlash. And there are generally three types of women that I notice are very resistant to leaning into their femininity. They don't like it, right? And there's different stages, and I'll talk about that on another live. There's different stages of really embracing your feminine energy. And the first stage is like rejection. It's like the stages of change. You reject the thing. You don't want to hear anything about it. But usually it's women who have been raised by their fathers. Not a lot of female, either they were raised around a lot of brothers or raised by their fathers or some other male family member where there wasn't a lot of female presence. And so they learned that it was modeled for them. They know how to operate in their masculine energy. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? We all have like there's a women we do have masculine energy, right? But they never learned, they saw feminine energy as weak because they were surrounded by the masculine. And so they tend to reject it. But there's part of them that knows that they're missing that connection to their feminine. So a lot of times when we know that there's, something that we're missing or avoid, we tend to reject it, right? We like our defense mechanism is on. Um, the other type of woman that I tend to see rejecting initially the feminine or their feminine energy is women who've had to be in survival mode. And I've talked about that a lot. And it's normal. Yeah, you had to be in survival mode. So you had to protect yourself, you had to provide for yourself, you had to engage in all of the outward hustling and grinding and things that were very outward, that's aligned with masculine energy. You had to do all of that. So you had to be cut off from your feminine. And not everybody, but I see this a lot. And so a lot of times those women will reject it because they feel like the thing that got me to be in survival mode is the thing, like, I'm not giving that up. And the thing that I saw that made me vulnerable was the feminine. And no, I'm not going to embrace that because I need to survive. Okay, so that totally makes sense. I get it. But they're in that state of defense mechanism. And the third type of woman, this is interesting. You will see a lot of women who had an example of a very feminine mother. But as a young girl growing up, she did not understand it. And she saw her feminine mother as being weak. She saw her as either being subservient, overly submissive, taken advantage of, not assertive, um, almost like questioning her competence. She took her mother's softness for weakness, and especially if her mother, of course, she didn't take the softness of her mother towards her, but her mother's softness towards others, she took it as a weakness. And unconsciously, she told herself, I will not be like that. I will not be like that. So she, told herself that. And then, depending on the generation or the age, like if you came up in the 80s, the 90s, even going into the 2000s, really up until now, like everything in the popular culture from the 80s onward was about independent, like independent woman, strong woman, all of this stuff. So you have the culture on the outside degrading or dismissing that soft femininity. And then you had, that influence a lot of times, a lot of young girls who had softer mothers. And then also a lot of times, especially in the Black culture, we were pedestalizing, we were holding up the harshness. Like it was all these jokes, a Black mother don't play that. It was like playing up the fact that as a Black woman would be more harsh, a Black mother would be more harsh, right? So there were a lot of young girls that I've talked to, women, but as young girls, in their mind, they told themselves they were not going to be like their mother. And then later on, they understood that their mother's softness was like a strength. It was like a strength of hers. Oops. Sorry about that. I don't want my microphone to fall. Um, they understood that that was a strength of hers and they tried to reconnect to it and recreate it. And it's a little bit easier for them because they saw the example. It's just that they actively at some point rejected it. So those are the three types. Women that were raised by a male caretaker primarily or around mostly boys, women who had to be deep in survival mode for most of their life, and women who saw a feminine mother but actively rejected it because they didn't understand it, they saw it as weak, and so on and so forth, right? So, what's up, everybody? Thank you for joining. Tell me what you think. Is that something that you experienced, that you saw with um, yourself, maybe, right? A lot of women are coming out. Oh, here's the tea, right? Have you guys been watching Meghan Markle's show on Netflix? I forgot the name of it. Hold on. It's all about her life. I love it. Let me see. Hold on. I'm gonna get it for you. But I love it. I've only watched episode one, but there's a lot being written about it because, Megan, there's debate, right? I consider her a woman of color. She's biracial. Her mother's black, her father's white. She's married to Prince Harry. And I'm gonna tell you the name of her show because I was just watching it. What is the name of it? 3 cups of flour. A tablespoon and a half of baking powder. All right, it's Meghan Markle's With Love Meghan. That's the name of it. With Love Meghan. And it's just, her homemaking. There's a lot of videos, right? There was what's the lady there's another influencer that's all about baking, from scratch and making fresh things for her kids and, just homemaking. There's a few of them, right? And it's getting more diverse. Like a lot of women of color are getting into that space. I won't say a lot, but many. But we all knew Martha Stewart did it, right? What's the cookbook? Betty Crocker, right? There is that's a whole lifestyle. It can even be a business. Homemaking, etiquette, domestic, you know, uh, finding glory in domesticity. And but now all of a sudden, when Megan is doing it, people are talking about, oh, this is unrelatable. Oh, this is not the time in history, or it's not the time, with what's going on in the world to be sitting there focusing on baking and cooking and, doing house parties and entertaining. And I'm like, why not? Right? How come it's a problem now that Megan is doing it? So that's just really interesting. And I wrote a little something, my own commentary on it, which is just because, it's fine when everybody else does it. Uh, Martha Stewart being one of the most recent ones. But as soon as it's a black or black adjacent woman, then all of a sudden it's unrelatable. It gets all of this criticism. And it's like, what? Oh, so you guys just want to see us stressed out, fighting, up in arms, always, fighting for our rights when we're ready to lean back, fall back, enjoy a soft life in any ways that we can, then all of a sudden it's a problem, right? So I thought that was really interesting. And I think that um actually leads into why it's been really hard for a lot of our women to accept their feminine energy. Not to accept it, but to consciously embrace it. All right. So let's get into some of these myths. Hold on. Okay. One myth is, let me put this down. All right. One myth is that feminine energy is subordinate or less than masculine energy. It's like we're equating feminine energy with the position that many people feel women have had throughout history. So if women have been oppressed at different points in history, different societies, then that means that feminine energy is subordinate or lower, or it represents oppression. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Our feminine energy, our femininity doesn't have to do with what happened, how history and societies have misused it. It has to do with our innate being, right? We are women, our bodies represent part of our feminine energy. Our it is tied to partially to our biology and how our brains are made and the roles that we have in contrast to or that complement masculine energy, right? So there's a part of it that's innate. There's also a part of it that's how we are socialized, like the roles that we take on in society. But it doesn't have to do with being lower than, it has to do with being different than, right? As I said, the feminine is receptive. Part of it is nurturing. Part of it is able to focus on connection, right? The masculine is more outward. The masculine tends to look at conquering and, more tunnel vision towards a particular goal. Now, are there, and this relates to the second myth, that feminine energy, that women are all 100% feminine energy and men are all 100% masculine energy. No, that's not true, right? Even Carl Jung talks about the masculine and feminine in both men and women. So it's not that women are only that, right? Only receptive, only nurturing, only, you know, seeing things as connected and focusing on relationship. But that is a big part of our innate nature. Now, can we draw on that masculine energy when needed? Yes, absolutely. And that's what a healthy woman does. The same way that a man has feminine energy as well, right? He look at what we're appreciating about a lot of male leaders, right? We want a male leader that has that emotional intelligence, that really understands the power of connection and relationships and communication, right? And is able to not only see things in tunnel vision, but like see the big picture, right? But our primary nature as women overall is leaning more towards the feminine energy. And it is not subordinate, it is not less than, right? It is a complement to, we need both. Imagine if we, only had male energy or only had female energy. They are different. And part of the problem is that over time, we have really just um downgraded, degraded, like in a quest for equality, we have felt that we had to distance ourselves from our femininity. Do you remember that song, James Brown, It's a Man's World, right? But the second part that he said is, but it's nothing without a woman, right? A lot of what we associate with like the achievements in society and, how society is ruled is associated with masculine energy, but it is really driven by the feminine. Okay. So the one myth is that it's, I'm sorry, I got to turn this off. The one myth is that it is, um, lesser than masculine energy. So, of course, a lot of women don't want to be less than. They're like, I'm equal to. But equal to does not mean being the same, right? You can still be in your feminine and be equal to, but no, neither of the energies is less than the other. Okay. All right. So, what's up, everybody? Checking in. Let me see on the comments. Yes, I totally agree with you. We have to stop uh, putting masculine energy on a pedestal as the only thing that drives achievement, drives society, drives leadership. No, women are some of the most important leaders in the world. Look at, I was telling this to my class. It's funny, like in the US, we talk about gender equality, but there have been more um, female presidents and prime ministers and heads of state in so-called developing or third world countries, Muslim countries, right? Um, India, Sri Lanka, well, the UK had Margaret Thatcher. Um, so many different countries have had female leaders, and we haven't even had one in the US. Okay, so that's one. Number two is that feminine energy is only in women and masculine energy is only in men. No, we both have both. But women are, when we are more in balance within our bodies and within our relationships when we're able to embrace more of our feminine energy, especially within our relationships. Let me say that again. Women, we are more in balance when we embrace more of our feminine energy, especially in our relationships. Tell me what you think about that. Okay. And then men, we are looking for, if you talk to any woman, what is she looking for, right? She's looking for a man that she feels safe with. And I've talked about this numerous times. It could be emotionally safe, it could be physically safe, it could be economically safe. Women bear children and they need protection, and they're looking, humans, we are the ones that raise our kids for a long period of time. We don't just hatch them and leave them to fend for themselves. So we are looking innately for a partner that can bring stability as we bear our children. Like, that's the biological part, the evolutionary part. All right. So we women, we are often looking for that stronger presence, right? It doesn't mean that we're not stronger in certain areas. Like, if you look at any relationship, any marriage, there's, you know, couples usually complement each other. She may be better at this and he may have a strength in something else. And it doesn't always fall along strict gender lines, but there is something to the balance that comes when a woman is able to primarily be in her feminine and the man is primarily able to be in his masculine in the relationship. Now, of course, I'm talking about heterosexual relationships, but even with same gender relationships, there's always I notice that there's a contrast, right? You're looking for somebody that has some of that opposite energy. All right. And then the third myth is that being in your feminine is only about being soft, receptive, submissive, that there's no room for being adventurous, for being assertive, for being confident. All of those, right? That combination of knowing when to be soft, but also having a level of assertiveness and being able to feel free and joyful, being, I call it self possessed. That doesn't mean self obsessed. It means that you're able to feel so comfortable in yourself, confident in yourself, playful and joyful in yourself. Also, knowing when to have boundaries with yourself and with other people. So, it doesn't mean being a doormat, being a yes woman, right? You have the assertiveness and the boundaries. You know how to use that tone of voice to say no and to cut people off and let them know when they've crossed the line, right? So, it is very, very interesting the perceptions or the myths that people have that it's like only about having that soft voice. Now, let me tell you, as someone with a soft voice, there's power in that as well. A lot of power in that. As someone who is totally comfortable in her softness, there is power in that because it often gets people where they don't expect it. Somebody is expecting you to come and go roar, and you come with a different energy, it commands attention, right? So a versatile woman knows how to work with all of it, right? So it's not just, my favorite phrase is stop being a one trick pony. Now, a lot of women, what I see with them is they're a one trick pony as far as feeling like they have to be in masculine energy in order to have any type of power or confidence or whatever. And what happens is in conflicts, they're like, you know, they're so aggressive. That's called being a one trick pony. You want to be able to be a multi trick pony, right? You want to have a lot of different tools in your toolbox, right? You got me? All right, let me start. I said I was gonna start using my sounds on these lives, right? Okay. So let's talk a fun fact. There was a story I was gonna tell you guys. Um Fun fact is that when you ask, and I've done my surveys, right? When you ask any man, what is that thing that makes him kind of soften up in front of, like in the presence of a woman? Fun fact, 9 out of 10 will tell you it's when she's comfortable with her emotions, when she's able to express her emotions, lean into, feel, accept, whatever, be comfortable in her emotions. Okay. So keep that in mind as you're thinking, because we want to fight force with force, but you need, you can't outforce a man. So you have to use a different type of energy. Okay. So, what's up, you guys? Let me see if there's any comments in the chat. Don't forget, I want to do some live coaching with people who watch the show. So, if you want to be one of the people, I can live coach you. I can put you on the hot seat and we could talk about anything. It could be your relationships, it could be helping you to incorporate more self-care into your life. It could be how to communicate better. It could be how to set up yourself so you have the discipline and focus to do what you need for yourself. That's another myth, right? Feminine women are very focused and disciplined. It's just that they know how to also put some of that focus and discipline on taking care of themselves and their well-being and pampering themselves, right? But very disciplined and focused. That's because women who are truly in their feminine have a lot have healthy boundaries. So they know they know how to not get drained by a lot of people. And that is something that has been um, one of my main, one of my, I'm sorry, somebody had just texted me. One of my main things that I like to tell women is it's so much easier to have boundaries and to then loosen them up over time than to start off with like really, really loose boundaries. And it took me a while to learn that, right? I used to be such approving mode. And that's an example of how you can appear quote soft, but you're really not in your feminine because you're overly trying to prove you're improving mode. And when you're improving mode and trying to prove your worth and get all of this external validation, then that drains your femininity. It drains your confidence. It drains your sense of self. So that was something that I had to work on. That's why I created my whole framework, my Boundaries to Bliss framework, where boundaries are literally the thing that will lead to you having blissful, healthy, happy relationships. But most importantly, a happy relationship with yourself. And sometimes, and I tell you guys this all the time, like sometimes I will literally just come and sit with myself. I might journal, I might just sit with myself, right? And try to just be still with my feelings, my emotions, so that I'm not being overly reactive with other people because we tend to say yes to things that we don't want to when we're feeling unworthy or we're feeling a void or there's some other feeling of this that we don't know what to do with it, and then we channel that into trying to please other people, right? So that was a lesson that I had to learn. And one of the things you can do is to just allow yourself to pause and to sit in stillness. And then you'll be more in tune with those feelings. And so when someone, like what did somebody ask me recently? People, and they don't even mean anything, right? It's not even, it'll be friends. Like I've started having really good conversations with friends, especially when they'll ask me last minute to do something. And I had to tell a friend, like, yo, that makes me feel like you don't really value me. You're asking me to do this thing and come, like, it'll be to come speak to their group or whatever it is. And it's like, but you waited until the last minute. So that's telling me that either I was a secondary thought, I wasn't your first choice, or you didn't value the time and energy it takes for me to do those things. Whatever it is, you're not respecting my boundaries. And what I have found is, like, in having these conversations with friends, a lot of times people are just doing what was done to them, right? They're just doing what was done to them. They do not know that other people doing that to them is not normal. It shouldn't be done to them. So they don't have boundaries, and therefore they perpetuate that same thing even on their friends. So a lot of times people don't mean it, but at the same time, you still have to let them know. Okay? All right. So everybody cool with those three myths? Let me see. Any Q&A this time? Oh, this is a question I get all the time. Remember I told you those three types of women: women who were mostly raised around men, women who were in survival mode, women who rejected their own mother's femininity. And a lot of women are like, "Well, where do I get started? Where do I get started?" Well, you need to be in community, right? Feminine energy thrives off of feminine energy. The feminine is drawn out around other feminine women. And you want to really get grounded in that before you try to start, you know, practicing it in relationships. So you need community. And that's why I created my membership community. I'm going to make sure the link is in the in the comments, but it's the Boundaries to Bliss Society. It's for women who want those healthy boundaries, that fulfilling relationship, and really feeling comfortable in their feminine. Learning the secrets that so many never learned, either because they were too busy focusing on, outside the house, that they didn't pick up the lessons inside the house, or they just didn't have anybody to teach them. So the keys to learning how to relax, how to be soft, how to communicate softly, how to allow yourself to indulge in self-care and pamper yourself, but also how to have healthy boundaries. So you need community. The Boundaries to Bliss Society is my inner circle membership, and it's all about mentoring and coaching women in those three areas: feminine energy, boundaries, and healthy relationships. Okay. All right, ladies. So I know we started a little bit late today, but we are going strong every Thursday, 8 o'clock. I know I started at 8:15 today, but don't miss the Boundaries to Bliss live Thursday live YouTube show. This is our lounge to relax and chill and just have chats that help us to feel more empowered and balanced as women. Okay? So I will see you guys next Thursday. Don't forget, the next episode of the podcast, The Secret Formula to Femininity, comes out on Monday. Take care.